So the NRL team lists have dropped for round 3. We've got a heap of big changes in a lot of the teams, and we're going to start with some of the big ones. First up, the Gold Coast. The Titans have shuffled a few names around. Cartwright and Kelly are not in the side. Liam, what have you seen, and do you think that these changes will work for the Titans?
Well, look, I think the old saying is, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. Well, there's a lot of things that are broke at the Titans, so I think they have to shuffle things around a little bit. Tyrone Roberts, the fullback, is an interesting one, in my opinion. I think he probably does his best work in the halves. Jamal Fogarty's been around for quite some time. He's 26 years old, only managed the 2 NRL games, but it's a good opportunity for him to impress alongside Ash Taylor. No Bryce Cartwright and Brian Kelly is probably not surprising if you'd read media reports. Obviously, all the stuff with the anti-vaccinations been in the media quite a bit lately, and Cartwright's form in the last probably 12 months hasn't been fantastic. He's been in and out of the side, so there's no real surprises to see him named as 18th man.
We were a bit surprised to still see Kelly and Cartwright around the 18, 19, 21 spots. Do you think they might get a look in later in the week?
I don't think they'll play this week unless there's a late injury or something. I think that 17 that they've named will probably be the 17 that lines up on Friday evening. But Bryce Cartwright, if he keeps training well, from all reports, he has been in the last week or two since he's gotten past the anti-vax stuff. So he might get his way into the team if they do keep losing.
Now, the next big game we're going to look at is the Warriors and the Dragons. They play up at the Warriors' current home ground up at Central Coast Stadium. Now, BB, the Warriors have made a couple of interesting changes. Obviously, they were forced to make a few changes through injury, but there's one or two that might surprise people as well.
I think the big thing with the Warriors over the last sort of 2 months, they've spoken about it over the past week or so, is basically what they trained during preseason, during real preseason leading into 2020, just wasn't working in the 2 rounds we've had so far of the 2020 season. So they're basically, by all reports, they've gone back to the drawing board, figured out what isn't working, and they've made quite a few changes. And not all of them are actually injury related. So we've got, from the round 2 side that obviously lost, we've got Adam Pompey dropped to the bench. David Fusitua, he's just come in. He's still on quarantine, or he joined the side a bit later. Adam Kieran's out with injury. Chanel Harris-Tavita was dropped. He's on the bench. Lisa Narmal's obviously out with injury, and Elisa Katoa goes back to the bench as well. So got a whole new lot of mainly backs coming in. So we've got Jared Beale coming back from a knee injury, and Peter Hiku and Patrick Herbert. I think all those 3 guys were probably, were probably sort of your first starters. Herbert and Hiku went back to New Zealand ahead of that round 2 game for family reasons. But yeah, like you say, the big one, probably the interesting one, is Chanel Harris-Tavita being dropped in favour of Cody Nikorima coming back. There's obviously, they've looked at what wasn't working, and there wasn't a lot actually working in those 2 rounds. No tries. There was a penalty try. Was the only try recorded for the Warriors in the first 2 rounds. So big changes, necessary changes over the last 2 months.
Do you think Nikorima has what it takes to sort of spark that Warriors team into action? And also on that, were you surprised Harris-Tavita wasn't maybe kept on the bench in sort of a 14 jumper like Nikorima was?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, but I think with Nikorima and Blake Green in the halves, it's a really good balance. Blake Green is sort of more of that controlled half there, can sort of lead the side around, and Nikorima can, do what he does best, which is spark things all over the park. So I think it's pretty good balance. Nikorima, maybe a little bit more polished than Chanel Harris-Tavita, just has that little bit more extra sort of a little bit of experience around there. But certainly be interesting to see whether this is a long-term solution for Stephen Kearney, or whether how long he'll give it if it's not quite working out.
And Liam, to you on the other side of that match, that the Dragons forward line is shuffled around a bit. You've obviously got Corbin Sims coming straight into the lineup, James Graham to lock. Trent Merrin's been dropped from the 17 altogether. And then you've got Ewan Aitken coming back into the 17 in that number 17 jersey. What do you make of what the Dragons have done?
Yeah, well, that's a baffling one with you and Aiken on the bench. I'm not sure what's happening there. Trent Merrin has been brought in as a marquee signing, quote unquote, for the next couple of seasons, and he's dropped to 18th man. I think the starting forward pack is a pretty good balance. Corbin and James Graham both slotted in there. It's good to see Josh Kerr and Tyrell Fuimaono both being rewarded for strong performances despite the losses in the first 2 rounds. And I think the back line is probably close to the best balance that we've got on paper with Dufty at fullback and Lomax and Williami in the centres. Tough luck for Tim Lafai. He's out of the 21 this week.
Well, the next game after that one is Sharks West Tigers out at Bankwest Stadium. And Danksy, obviously a lot of news happening out of Cronulla today with what's happened with Bronson Xerri. Can you talk us a bit through it and what you make of the team they've named?
Yeah, so obviously huge news that Bronson Xerri stood down for an indefinite period for the moment. I guess it's probably made John Morris's decisions a little bit easier. He'd said for the past few weeks the only way he was going to be able to get all his players in the side, all his stars, was if Brayley could play 80 minutes. So he wasn't sure if he could or if he couldn't. So he'd have like maybe a Dukes coming on as 14 or something like that. I think the Sharks have come out of this all right. Obviously, Will Kennedy's played a fair few games at the back. He's very safe. With someone like Matt Moylan, whose hamstrings and his back and his calf for a little bit have all been playing up, it's one round. Give him another round to rest. He'll be so fine. I really like the makeup of the bench. Connor Tracy's fantastic. He's a really good 14. Billy Magua is so unlucky not to be playing that. I think if anyone had seen Jack Williams, who's been named in the 13 jersey, train the house down, as they say, in pre-season, probably underwhelmed a little bit the first 2 games. I thought Magulas could have come in possibly. At the moment, he's outside the 18. But you think of the big boppers there. You've got Braden Hamlin-Uele, Toby Rudolph, who's been fantastic, and then Scott Sorensen again in the 17. I think that's a really strong bench. The only other one which I think could possibly come in, who's, again, just outside the 17, is massive unit Royce Hunt, who just absolutely eats people for breakfast, and he's about 17 years old. But apart from that, I really like the look of the 17. I think probably the one which people should be talking about a little bit more is maybe Britton Nakora, who's been a huge loss and just plays really well off Sean Johnson. I think he could do a lot down that right edge.
Just quickly, I don't know, Royce is 24. I don't know if you want to...
He's about 17. I'm certain of it. He is so young and so big.
Well, obviously they come up against the West Tigers, and there's a few very interesting changes that they've made that I'm going to quickly go through. 2 massive outs and massive experienced outs for them. Corey Thompson out of the side completely, as is Elijah Taylor. Now, Adam Duahi has been put in the number 1 jersey. He will be the starting fullback. Nofaluma, Joey Leilua, Moses Mbai, their captain, returns in the centres, and Robert Jennings at number 5. And then the new loan signing from Melbourne, Harry Grant, comes straight into the starting lineup at number 9. And Billy Walters gets relegated to the bench, and there is no sign of Josh Reynolds. So they've made a lot of changes there. Madge Maguire, 2 experienced names drop, very experienced names dropped from the team. So it'll be interesting to see how they fare up against what is a pretty strong Cronulla Sharks forward pack, and is probably their full strength Cronulla Sharks forward pack. So Harry Grant will have his work cut out for him in his first game in West Tigers colours. Now, the final match we want to address is the final match of the round. The Sunday night game is Manly versus the Bulldogs. Manly, pretty standard side, what we expect, but the Bulldogs have made a couple of interesting changes. One change that we thought they were going to make that they haven't pulled the trigger on yet. Liam, what do you make of some of the changes that the Dogs have made and Dean Pay has made?
They haven't selected Kieran Foran. Obviously, he's not fit to play. So they've gone with Lachlan Lewis and Jack Cogger in the halves, which is surprising considering that the last time the Bulldogs played, Lachlan Lewis was hooked by Dean Pay with 20 minutes or half an hour to go in the game. Brandon Wakem's the unlucky man to miss out. Foran will probably be back in the next couple of weeks, you would think. So this is probably a test for Lewis and Cogger to see who is going to partner him. Another big out that I'm very surprised by is Aidan Tolman. He's a veteran of the club. He's been there for years. He probably doesn't have the same punch that he used to earlier in his career, but in a Bulldogs side and a Bulldogs forward pack especially that is lacking a little bit of experience, you would think that someone like Aiden Tolman would be in that 17. He's been replaced by Ofahigi Ogden in the 17, and Suaso Su comes onto the starting lineup.
Do you think that some of those changes are really going to be only temporary, that Tolman might be back next week and then Foran will be back the week after that? Or do you think Dean Pay has sort of swung the axe a little bit and gone, okay, we haven't started the season how we want to, so this is what we've got to do?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I would like to think it is temporary for someone like Aiden Tolman. I think he probably deserves a chance to be in that 17. So he might just be testing a few younger blokes. They weren't too far off the pace in those first 2 games. They only lost by 6 points against Parramatta, 8 points against the Cowboys, who are on paper much stronger outfits. So I think once Foran's back in the side and potentially Aiden Tolman back in for a bit of experience in the forward pack, they could surprise a few people later in the season.
Well, they're all the big takeaways from us here on Round 3 NRL team lists. If you want to see all the team lists and all the teams that have been named for this weekend, make sure to head over to Sporting News' website. You can catch all the details there.